right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Bridgepoint Podcast. I'm Pastor Matthew Peters. Really glad that you're tuning in today. Hey, just want to remind you, if you like this material, and I'm sure that you're going to, please be sure to like it, subscribe to our channel, and share it on your various social media platforms of your choice. And it's really a special treat to have Justin Savage with us today. Justin, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Super glad you're here.
Yeah.
So just a little background of how we got to know each other. You visited my church through some mutual friends, and then I got to bump into you while you were involved with leadership at the Indiana Dunes Great Banquet.
Correct.
And the story that we had is that I had to give a talk that you previewed, and you were one of the people that had the boldness to point out something in my talk that might not have been helpful for people. And I really didn't like that.
Sorry.
Yeah. And we've
honest.
talked about this, but then, I had to go home and I had to really pray about that. And then what God did in my heart was, I never thought poorly of you, as I've told you, right? It wasn't that I thought poorly of you, but I didn't realize how deep my pride was. I really didn't. And then I prayed about it, and God really convicted me. And when I went back and reread my material, I realized that you were exactly correct. And through prayer, I listened to what you said, and I changed my talk, and I actually think it really, really helped. And then God did this thing in my heart that it's sort of like I became ungrinchified. Like my heart grew 3 sizes that day in respect to you. And I have listened to you talk. I've listened to you engage with people. I've seen your life. And brother, I'm impressed, and I'm so thankful, and I feel fortunate that I've been able to just even be able to be in the same room as you.
Gosh,
So
well, I'm blessed and honored to be here. I feel highly, think very highly of you. Thank you.
and I'm sure anyone that knows you knows the spiritual journey that you've been on to grow to the place to be the man that God has shaped you to be. And you've been responsive to that, and you've been obedient to him, and that's been clear for all of us to see. Today, we're talking about a subject that's, might be challenging, but I think it's going to be really helpful to people. I quickly realized when I just learned more about you is that you've been through a number of painful physical and painful emotional experiences that have shaped you, and actually you've come through and are coming through. And I'm just intrigued, and I think a lot of people could be helped by your testimony. And I'd love to just begin to share with you and have you share with us some of the things that have happened to you over the past and how God shaped you and what other people could learn from your experience. So talk to me a little bit about how your weightlifting background and what happened to you when you were in competition in bodybuilding, I should say, not weightlifting, right?
Yeah, I can probably do I'll try to sum up a quick version of my story that
Sure.
A lot of times I've told my story. I always think back whenever I walked into high school, my freshman year, and I walked in, I was 5 foot tall and 89 pounds, smaller than the smallest girl out of 2,000 kids. And so there was a pain of that. I played baseball my whole life growing up, and I remember being at that point just not big enough, fast enough, strong enough to even compete. And I kind of gave up on my baseball dreams. And I said, man, I really want to build up, I got to start working out, try to put some muscle on. And then I did that, and I started working out after high school. And I remember I had perfect attendance all through high school. So, and I went every single day, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3, no more than that, every day after high school, down in the gym, working out. And so I went from the smallest kid. By the time that I got out of high school, I was pound for pound the strongest kid ever in Maryville High School history.
Well, you're not actually that tall, right?
No, I'm 5'8".
Yeah.
5'8", about 177 right now. So yeah, but whenever I finished high school, I was about close to my same size right now.
Yeah, and you have maintained fitness quite well throughout the course of your life, correct?
Yeah, so I became at the time I graduating high school, I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I said I love helping people, I love working out. It clicked one day. I said, well, I can help people work out, and so I chose not to go to college, And I said, I'm going to go get certified as a personal trainer. And I went and became a personal trainer. Right after high school, I worked in a gym, and that was a big part of my identity and my background, and it became my expertise, being a personal trainer and running a nutrition program and all that.
Yeah.
And competed in powerlifting, during that. And so I did better in powerlifting than I ever did in bodybuilding. I won the overall state of Indiana. I was pound for pound the strongest kid in the state of Indiana my senior year in high school.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, I guess I'm pretty good at this. And so
I guess so.
So I ended up continuing on. I went to go compete nationally. That was a big dream of mine. And I trained for 2 years, like while I was a personal trainer in the gym and working out and training for powerlifting. And I had this big dream was to, maybe be in the top 3 in the nation. That was my dream. And by the time that I got down to it, my 8 days before my big national competition, I was doing deadlifts, 3 sets of 3 reps, 500 pounds. That third set, that third rep took my back out. I blew my back out really, really bad. And I remember where it was so painful I couldn't even sleep at night. And 3 days before I'm supposed to do this competition, I couldn't even put my shoe on by myself. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to go pick up 500 pounds though. And it was a pretty amazing moment in my life. Kind of crazy and stupid now looking back on it, because I literally thought about it, and I made the decision. I said, I don't care if I'm paralyzed in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I'm going to go do this competition,
Wow.
whatever. I did the crazy psycho thing in my brain that the more it hurts, the harder I'll push. The more it hurts, the harder I'll push. And so I went and did my squats, and I was like, oh gosh, and then I, somehow did that. Did my bench press, did the deadlift. That is a quick little sum up of a powerlifting competition. You go up, you do your one attempt.
Okay.
You wait about 20 minutes, and while other guys go and do their one attempt, and then you go do your second attempt.
Right.
And then you wait about 20 minutes, and the guys go up and you do your next one lift. I was sleeping in those 20-minute periods because I didn't sleep the whole week before because of how excruciating pain I was.
So you were that tired.
I was that tired from literally not sleeping that I would just crash, get up, slap myself, and just, I don't know, just trying to do whatever.
So at that point, was it just your body being able to function because you had muscle strength that you were able to mind over matter, get through the pain? Like, because I would think that being well rested would have been more optimal for your performance, right?
Well, yeah, certainly. But I don't know. I don't know if it was just God making this, part of my story, because I've told the story many times, or just some little psycho thing in my brain or mind over matter. I don't know. But I went and competed. I didn't lift quite as much as I wanted to, but when it was all said and done, I finished third place. I took third in the nation. I was 2 spots away from being the guy to represent the United States for the world competition.
Wow. Now, was that what you were expecting? I mean, did you expect to win, or where did you think you were going to?
No, that's a good little goal setting lesson too. Winning first place wasn't the goal. Being in the top 3 was the goal. Oh. And I got third. So
do you think if you had set a different goal for yourself, you perhaps could have achieved it?
I don't know. I don't know about that. Maybe.
So what were the lessons that you learned going through that physical adversity?
Lessons I learned going
spiritually,
through that,
especially.
One thing, that all things are possible. I think that I think anytime I've ever have gone through extreme physical pain, I think about what Jesus did on the cross for us. And I try to. Later, even when I created the program that I run and all that, I worked myself nearly to death. It felt like to me, and I gave everything I had, and I just tried to do my little version, of like what Jesus did for us, giving it all, going through all the pain, total exhaustion, dripping out every last bit of blood you could possibly do, just giving it all for unconditional love for others. Sometimes I think about that, what Jesus did. And I try to use that to push myself sometimes, with certain things. So, but I don't know. So, anyways, that probably bounced around a little bit in my story. It's hard to not bounce around with it. But
it's interesting that you talk about the pain of Jesus on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might not know this about me, but I've always been very involved in fitness, much more in running and just weightlifting, kind of like all round exercise. Like I would do P90X, you
Right.
know, and those type of things, mountain climbing, biking, just any kind of fitness. I'm on it.
Yeah,
Like I loved
I know
it. Right.
we
Right.
related with that. I was always more powerlifting and bodybuilding, you know,
Yeah.
specifics. And,
And I did
that.
lifting, you
but
know,
in general,
yeah.
we both.
So, you know, my story was that, you know, I'm out for a 6-8 mile run, something like that. And the weather was getting cool or something. It was like the first cool fall day. And my chest hurt.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm not out of shape. What's going on? And so this went on for a while, and I was pretty much in denial. But the long story short is that it hurt anytime I did vigorous exercise, my chest started hurting me. So I went through various tests, and I passed all the stress tests. I passed everything. I fooled the doctors, so to speak, but they knew there was something wrong with me. And after a series of, you know, escalating tens of thousands of dollars of testing, they basically determined that I had a whole bunch of problems. I had an aortic aneurysm, which was about ready to burst. I had, like, you look inside of me, my aorta was blown up like a funky elephant ear-like balloon, and it was ready to explode. This disorder had killed my grandfather and my uncle. It's very much inherited, and I had it, and I did not know. And I was literally a ticking time bomb. Plus, even though I eat no processed food and I'm very healthy and I'm Mr. like lean meats, vegetables, and low inflammation diet type guy, I had a need for a quadruple bypass. And they sent me into the hospital, and I went from being a person who was very fit and could pretty much power my way through anything athletically. I mean, one thing that I always said, and this is hilarious, I think it's funny, maybe other people don't. One thing I always knew is that no one could ever hurt me because I could outrun them. I could run faster and farther than anyone I knew. And so I was like, it's going to be fine. You know? So like, I remember, I don't want to tell that story. I had a story of a very large gentleman that almost tried to sexually assault me in Chicago. And he saw me with another guy, and you know, I look at me. Some people tell me that I look like I might be interested in other men. Sometimes I'm not. I'm happily married. But I was with another guy, and we were very young, and I was in college, and I think he assumed that we were a couple. And when he didn't get the answer that he wanted, he started, and he was very large. He was about almost 7 feet tall. And I just said to my friend, run. And we ran. We ran. So I could outrun people. You know, I was not afraid, but I remember they told me I was going to need this big surgery. It was slated to be about a 5.5 hour surgery. It went almost 12 hours. I heard the nurses talking about me in the hallway, and they were like, this is Mr. Peters. He's 45 years old, generally good condition, but he's coded twice, and so we're going to be watching him. And I'm like, ladies, I can hear you. If you're going to talk about me dying, like, can you do it like in another room, you know? But the thing about the sufferings of Christ that really got me is that my wife told me that she visited me. So my surgery started very early in the morning. Like I had to be at the hospital like 3 a.m. or something crazy, downtown Chicago, at Northwestern. And I got there, and you know, they drug you up, and the next thing you knew, you're out. Like the last thing I remember is them telling me, "Oh, you need to take your ring off, Mr. Peters." And I'm like, "My ring?" And so I like took it off and gave it to them. Oh my gosh, that your hands swell, everything. They would have had to cut my ring off if they hadn't taken that off. That was like a last second. That was the last thing I remember doing, handing them my ring. And the next thing I remember is waking up handcuffed to my hospital bed and looking up and being able to see that it was 1:30 in the morning, and it was dark, and there was a window, and I had a tube down my throat, and I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. And then I went, because I had this thing down my throat and I'm handcuffed, and I can see some nurses out there like down the hall in the nurses station, and they heard me and they came and they said, "Okay, Mr. Peters, we're going to take this thing out of your throat." I can't remember what it was called, but they took it out. And the moment they took it out, it was like someone had poured sand down my throat. My throat was so dry, and I have never in all my life been so thirsty. And I said, "Can I have something to drink?" And she said, "No." And I was like, "Why?" She goes, "Because you will choke, and we can't have you choking." I said, "I'm so thirsty. Please give me something to drink."
Like Jesus on the cross.
You
till I'm
got it.
thirsty.
And I thought, I thirst. And I thought, thank you, God, that I'm alive. Thank you that you thirsted and there was no drink for you. Your end was not to recover. Your end was to go to the grave for me. And I remember, I wish I could tell you that I have this thought all the time, but I remember thinking, you must always be grateful for the rest of your life. And she said, in a half an hour, I'll bring you an ice cube. And she took the tiniest little pissant of an ice cube that has ever existed in humanity. I mean, I wanted an ice cube, right? She gave me this little chip of ice that was probably less than my thumbnail. And she set it right in my mouth, and it was gone even before it started. It melted just like that, and I got about 2 seconds of relief, and then it was gone. And I said, "Can I have more?" She said, "No, you'll choke." She was absolutely right. I was not prepared for that. And I just remember, and then I remember having another experience where I was actually frightened because they had to take me to another part of the hospital. And no disrespect to the gentleman who took me around, but they were just genuinely looked like thugs. They really did. They did not look safe. They looked more scary than some of my friends that are currently in prison. Okay. And I have friends in prison right now. Okay. So, and I thought for the first time in my life, I thought, there is nothing I can do. If they want to beat me up, if they want to hurt me, I can't walk, I can't move. I'm totally helpless. And this was my life for like the next several months. I have totally lost my ability to run. I cannot run anymore. I've tried. I ran about 2 miles with my son. It just about killed me. Maybe I would someday run again, but I've just recently started working out, doing very light exercises. I think I did like about 100 push-ups the other day, which was like major in 4 different sets.
Sure.
Okay. Over a workout. And I'm along with other abdominal exercises. But like the point that I'm making is that what I learned is that Jesus went through it for us, and that my suffering is nothing in compared to his suffering. And that he's going to sustain me and he's going to keep me, and that I need to be grateful and thankful for what I have and not take it for granted.
I think that's great what you said. That's awesome. Anybody listening to this, and everybody's suffering in some way.
Right.
Just compare it to what Jesus went through, and it'll probably put you in your place a little bit.
Yeah, and there's also
I think it'll really help.
There really is a purpose to our suffering. Like a lot of people see suffering as wasted, and it's because they don't have a perspective that comes through Christ. And I know that all the arguments of all the horrible things that could happen to people. I mean, frankly, one of the things that I have really wrestled with, interestingly enough, is the 9/11 disaster. I had friends in that building, and they got out, and they were told to stay in that building, but they didn't listen because they kept hearing very loud crashes. And you know what they were hearing? They were hearing people jumping out of the building, and when they hit the pavement, it shook the entire building. Those are very large buildings. I don't understand the physics of it, but they assured me that they could hear and feel the people hitting the ground from the 30th floor, wherever they were. And they got out. I had 2 different people that I went to school with, one that I went to school with and one that I knew after school. And it's been very difficult for me to process those kind of levels of suffering. But then I think, no, Jesus, he went through the suffering and he identified with us on the cross, and that no matter what I've physically or emotionally gone through, he understands my pain. and he has done something about it. And my response is to receive him and live a life of gratitude and thankfulness that in a way that I would glorify God in everything that I do.
Attitude of gratitude. I
Yes,
try to live with that.
absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely. And it's good to talk about these things. It's good to remind ourselves of these things because, frankly, life can distract you, and the pain itself of life can distract us. So, what happened to you after you were heroic and you pushed through the pain and you got third place, which is remarkable, by the way, for such an injury?
It was the cheapest trophy that I got out of any competitions. I thought
Really?
I thought the national competition, yeah, it was this little cheap trophy, but no, I don't do it for trophies, and I don't think anybody
Sure.
does. It's just personal satisfaction, personal challenge, and all that. But yeah, so I mean, so what are you asking specifically after? I did
What happened to you after that point when you finished that? Did you have a
So
period of
I
recovery?
did the competition. Yeah, I hurt my back really bad, and it was kind of like, all right, let me switch over to bodybuilding because powerlifting doesn't matter what you look like; it just matters how strong you are. And bodybuilding doesn't matter how strong you are; it just matters what you look like.
Sure. Right.
So
Truisms.
yeah, so I kind of I switched over to focusing on competing in bodybuilding. Competed in 9 powerlifting competitions, and now I competed in 6 bodybuilding competitions in about a year and a half period.
Wow.
When most guys will do like 1 in a year, maybe. I did
Okay.
6 in a year and a half period, and then was kind of like, okay, I need to work too. That was whatever, 22 years old.
It takes an
something like that.
enormous amount of time to focus like that. Hours and hours a day, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's with the diet and working out and dedication and discipline and just locking it into your mind, that you've got a goal set to go after. And so I did that, and I was really focused for a while, and then I was like, I need to get back to work too. I mean, fortunately, I have my own business as a financial advisor. It's my primary business, and so I kind of get to make my own schedule and all that. And
Yeah.
So when you have someone in their early 20s who gets to make their own schedule and they love working out, they end up spending more time in the gym than they do the office.
Sure. Who wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Who
But
wouldn't?
but then after a while, it's like, okay, I gotta work too. So
Sure.
I kind of took a break from that,
Uh-huh.
and then didn't compete for many years. And I think it was it was about. I mean, and there was a time along there too that I had about a 5-year period of no working out, fast food, almost every meal.
Really?
Getting about the worst shape of my life and all that. And then I went through the Fight Club program.
Oh.
So we've got there's guys from different churches around in our area. Participate in Fight Club, and the basis of that program is you have assignments that you're doing that relate towards your physical, mental, relational, and spiritual. There's different assignments, but part of it you're exercising and you're running and trying to get in shape and all that. So I had done that, and I was like, okay, I got about the worst shape of my life, and then I did that to start getting back in shape. And then by the time I was done, I started believing. I said, wow, you know what, where I'm at. And I was like, yeah, all I got to do is if I put on 10 pounds of muscle and lose 10 pounds of fat, I'll be right there. I can compete in bodybuilding and all that. And I did that. And it was pretty interesting story. Yeah, I mean, you kind of know a little bit of this. I don't know.
I don't know if I know this part.
Well, in my talk before, saying how I don't know how I can say it without saying the long story of that. But basically, when I had competed in bodybuilding when I was 22 years old, I'll tell you right now, it was literally nothing more than I'm 22 and I think it's cool. I want to see how buff I can get.
Sure.
I want to see
Absolutely.
how cool I can make my muscles look.
Yeah.
Right. And then I was like 35 years old, and I just felt this deep spiritual calling, God telling me, you need to get back in your bodybuilding. You need to do your bodybuilding. And I'm thinking like, wow, it's just sometimes God puts something on our heart. And I'm thinking, it's just glorifying to God for me to stand on a stage in skimpy posing trunks, oiled up, which flex my muscles for people. It's kind of hard to think of, can this really be glorifying to God? But what I think is interesting is that I think God prepares us to do what we're gifted and blessed in, that we can, if we can turn that into a ministry some way, and we need to go out there and reach people, so I thought maybe, and I just felt this calling, like someone's coming to Christ through your bodybuilding. And I'm thinking, someone's coming to Christ through my bodybuilding. I'm like no other calling. I just felt it. I knew it. God was laying that in my heart. I kept hearing that and feeling that. And I'm just like, someone's coming to Christ through my bodybuilding. Wow. And that was really driving me to get back into it, you know?
You were really hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Totally.
yeah, it was
Totally.
clear as can be.
For the listeners who don't kind of buy into this kind of thing, or maybe their church theological tradition resists this kind of stuff,
Sure.
you know, I'm just here to say, have an open mind, because what you're about to hear, dear friends, from my friend Justin is quite amazing. So you really had this sense that you had been out of it for a while, and God was really impressing upon you, someone is going to come to Christ through your bodybuilding. Get on it.
Yes.
That is
Clear
amazing.
as day.
That is so awesome.
You know, because I'm not good at a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, I've got my couple things that God's designed me for, I guess, that I'm blessed with. I mean, we all have different gifts, talents, abilities, whatever. So,
Sure.
You know, just, I kind of had that background with fitness and working out, and, you know,
Yeah.
I was a personal trainer and ran a nutrition program and all that stuff. And I had done the bodybuilding and all that. So, that was kind of my wheelhouse or whatever. And I was out of it for a while. And then I just felt God calling me to get back into that. And it was because I was at a different stage in my life spiritually where I'm trying to listen to the voice of God, you know, always trying to be doing whatever God's calling me to do. And I know it seemed weird, you know, like someone's coming to Christ through bodybuilding. And so I started training. And I said, and I figured, my thought was, okay, I'm probably going to like meet a friend at the gym and I'll invite them to church and they'll, you know, introduce them to Jesus that way. And that wasn't it. I never met a friend that I brought to church. That wasn't the thing.
That was not the pathway.
And so what was interesting was, I got the calling, and then I had faith, and I started taking the steps without knowing the rest of the story of where it was going, though. So, I mean, it was totally a very spiritual experience, totally working on faith. And so, I'm in the gym, I'm working out, and I'm training, and I'm just like, not the polar opposite of when I was 22, caring about, let me see how cool I can make my muscles look. It was
right.
like, Lord, you're putting us in my heart. I'm doing this for you. And I'm thinking of like the scripture of, you know, anything that we do, we should be doing like we're doing for Jesus, you know.
Yeah, do anything you do it all for the glory of God.
Yeah. I mean, I was like thinking of that, like while I'm between sets working out, you know, thinking of that, you know, to having that drive me. And then it just started coming more clear together that I had this vision on my heart to create my program. I run the Pure Fat Loss Challenge program, you know, and it started, I just had this kind of vision planted in my heart and everything. And I realized it was a leadership thing. It was totally a leadership thing, that if I'm going to go out there and lead other people for that, I need to be a good example to follow. And that was it. And so I went, and November 22nd, 2014, I remember I competed in my first bodybuilding competition that I had done, and there was about 14-year period break, and then got back in to go do it. And
wow.
I took first place in my competition and all that. And
I didn't know that.
So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So it was a fun part of my story. And I remember with that, it was, you know, that was a cool Facebook post to be able to share that day. Like, hey, I just came back and I took first place in the bodybuilding competition, you know? So, I'll pat myself on the back there. Yeah. Yay for me. That's cool.
It is a good accomplishment, though.
But another thing too, though, another part of the story was I had a guy who went through Fight Club with me that, because we're exercising with that. And then so I threw it out to some of the guys. I was like, hey, man, I've got like pretty rockin' awesome meal plan. I know how to do the diet, just right and everything. Like if you want to shed some fat pounds while we're doing this, and I had a couple guys that were, kind of doing it. But there's one guy in particular who he did it. And he really followed it, and he lost 50 pounds in 12 weeks following my meal plan.
Whoa!
And so,
that is some serious health improvement.
Yeah, it was awesome. Just transformed his life so positively. It was awesome, and I needed that to remind me of like, oh, I have something of such tremendous value that I need to be out there and share with people. I've always had this vision that I know I got an awesome meal plan. I know I'm pretty good at motivating people to start working out, and I've got a passion in this and kind of my expertise, and and I was like, I need to do something with this, package this up, and so. So I went out there and I took first place at bodybuilding competition, kind of got myself back in shape. So there was the leadership thing,
Yeah.
right? And then I had this awesome testimonial of this guy. And so I kind of had the credibility, I think, at that point. Where people were like, wow, like Justin's pretty good at the working out diet thing.
I think you had the credibility, sir. Just
so
yeah, pretty much.
I mean, yeah, but I just hadn't done that for a while. But I think people were like, wow, he's kind of knows what he's doing with this area.
Yeah, you did.
And I had about an 8-day period after like Thanksgiving, like November 22nd, that was competition. I think that 8-day period, I was just in deep prayer and just visualizing and just God stirring in my heart and just thinking, how am I going to, I've got this vision. And if I do something like this, and I just kept thinking, it's got to be January 1st, because I know that's the hot time of the year, that everybody's got their New Year's resolutions, they want to get in shape and all that. And I was so inspired by the Fight Club program, that structure. They have a kickoff event, and then they have midpoint events, and then there's a graduation ceremony that you get a shirt at the end when you graduate.
Yeah.
And you've got team leaders, and you do it with an accountability partner. And there's the whole structure of there's like assignments that you do to make you do the stuff of what you really need to do.
Yep.
And if you don't do it, you get a strike, and 3 strikes, you're out.
Oh.
And I was like, I'd gone through that program, and I'd never seen anything transform the lives of so many guys just so quickly, so deeply in the areas of spiritual, physical, relational, mental, right? And I was like, I'm not an expert with those other things. I'm pretty good at the physical part. And I was like, man, I can only imagine how awesome this would be if I poured it into, I took the structure of this and kind of did my little version of this all with the physical part. And I did it starting on January 1st, right, when everybody's wanting to do that. And I got this awesome testimonial of this guy who's sharing, he's lost 50 pounds in 12 weeks. I know there's a lot of other people out there that want to do that. And, it came off of me having the leadership example of being able to lead from the front and doing that. And I threw it out there, and it was the most spiritual experience of my life, hands down, by far, most spiritual experience of my life.
And you saw someone come to Christ because of that, right?
Yeah. So I could keep.
No, I know. I've heard a little bit of this story before.
Yeah.
And true enough, this whole journey was completely correct in terms of not just teaching you all kinds of leadership principles and obeying God and getting your physical and spiritual life in fitness and in shape, but you also tell us a little bit about the woman that came to Christ through this adventure.
Yeah. So, this is pretty cool. So I started the program. I had like a kickoff event right before January 1st, and I mean, I didn't have an assistant yet. I didn't have any team leaders. I didn't have a logo. I was creating this program as I was going along, but I was out there promoting it, saying it's gonna be awesome. You got to come out to the Pure Fat Loss Challenge. You got to check it out. You got to get some friends. We're gonna do this, and I'm like promoting this, and then dropping to my knees, saying, "Lord, I'm putting my butt on the line really big, and I'm doing this because I know you're calling me to do this. But Lord, you've got to guide me what I need to do to make this happen."
Yeah.
And then going out there and promoting it more, and I had went to the Avalon Manor Banquet Hall on Route 30 in Maryville.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Rented that out. I had like 90 people coming out to hear about the Pure Fat Loss Challenge, kickoff event. And I only had, Matthew, I had one time less than 90 minutes before I'm going to do this big presentation. I had promoted up that I even did one quick little view of this little bad PowerPoint that I had made to present to these people. And I had just about every single person that had signed up and committed to doing that. And we had this 12-week program that I was creating as I was going along, and I was working up to 20 hours a day, overnight after overnight, sleeping in my office and everything, trying to handle, running this program. And by the time we were done, I remember we had 67 people that graduated the program, and at our graduation event that there was about 50 people who had used the phrase, "This changed my life." And I stood in the back of the room with tears in my eyes and goosebumps, like, Lord, I can't believe that you used me in this way to doing this. And, seeing multiple people, expressing there that, this brought me to Christ. And, and it's interesting. It's like a fat loss program. It brought me to Christ. It's not like, I don't know, necessarily a Christian thing, whatever, but I gave it all. like Jesus did on the cross. I just gave everything I possibly could, going without sleep. I mean, I lost so much weight, muscle weight, starving myself, working all day, just giving everything out. $4,000 out of my own pocket to cover the expenses of doing this while I took a quarter of a year off of my work to do this.
Oh, you weren't working at your work? You just
No, because I
basically
got
let
my
it
own
ride.
business, make my own schedule, so I basically just didn't work for like a quarter of a year because this was more than a full-time job running this. And
So these people weren't paying to be involved in the this.
the first time it was,
I
I was going to do it for free. I was
Okay.
going to do it for free, and
Wow.
then I realized, I said, you know what, people aren't going to value it at all.
No,
And
they
if
won't.
I got a
You
little bit
have
of
to
money to
charge
work
people.
with, then I can make like
You have to.
contest. I can do more, to
Yeah.
get back with it. So I was. Anybody that sees current rates, whatever, it will blow their mind. It was either $100 or $250. It's 100% refundable if they just graduate. I'll give them all their money back. So that's what I did with my first program, and
Wow.
and I just had to get all these, but I got a lot of good testimonials, and I got the whole structure of the program built, and I had people that were saying we got to do it. And I was only going to do it one time.
Okay.
Because I was trying to tell friends, I said, "Hey, you got to do this." Because Fear was always asking me, "Hey, make me a diet plan, teach me how to work out." And I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna do this one time."
Yeah.
I thought, but there were so many people that said, "This is awesome! Gosh, this changed my life." I heard the phrase "this changed my life" so many times from that, and people said, "I want to do this. I got friends that want to do this." And I was like, "Wow, okay. Well, I kind of did all the work of creating this. Okay, maybe we'll do it again next year." And I enhanced it and tweaked it and took it to the next level and all that, but. I guess, but back to my whole main outcome why I was doing that was 100% solid belief that someone's coming to Christ through this. And how is someone going to come to Christ through this? Is if they feel the love of Christ. And if I just prayed, God, help me create this program. This is for you, by you, in your way, and I just gave everything I had. But I think the key to that, it blew people's mind. They're like, I thought you're gonna like give me a diet plan and give me some workout tips and you'll help weigh me and stuff, like that. And it was I just gave everything, just pouring, hour long, messages, encouraging people and going out of my way in every way possible, just blowing their minds.
You were caring for people.
Caring for people, loving people.
That's
giving,
fantastic.
just dripping out everything I possibly could. And they saw that it was genuine as can be, that then they had opened up to that. And I think that they had felt that, and it was just, so it's just, I don't know, hard to say how that happened, but yeah, real cool part of that. There was someone who became a good friend of mine named Tina that went to my church. She was going to church, but she had later in one of our private conversations, she had admitted to me. She said, I've never actually like accepted Jesus in my heart, and I'm like, I know that's the. Obviously, you know a lot more about that, but I knew the main basics of it, that somebody needs to actually accept him in his heart to be able to have for their salvation,
Right.
And until our time together, and through the program, and it was I would say the greatest honor of my life was after we were done with that she had asked me to be the one to baptize her. And she just had this vision. She wanted to be in Lake Michigan on a beautiful summer night and to baptize her. And I'm like, okay, if I can, whatever. I was totally honored to do that, and that's how she wanted it. Because I got to fortunately have God work through me to be the person to help bring her, to Christ.
Nice.
And so we did that, and it was really cool driving away that day and looking up in the sky, and there was a cross in the sky. Like how the clouds did or whatever. And it was
Just
like
formed
really,
a cross.
Yeah, there was a cross in the sky on this beautiful summer day as we drove away
That's
after
beautiful.
baptizing her. And that was my favorite memory with her for the next couple years until she did pass away.
She passed away.
She passed away after that.
Wow.
And I'm just thinking, wow, I'm so glad that I was obedient to the call. And I back it up. Well, yeah, she said because of what we did in the program. Well, because of the program. I did the program because I had to be an example, I had to have that leadership example. So, and it all came down to that little something, that little voice that I heard in my head of, you need to get back in your bodybuilding. Someone's coming to Christ through bodybuilding and being faithful to it. And I always say, Matthew, one of my little sayings is, hey, when you look down or, you feel the vibration and you hear the sound and you look at your phone and you see that Jesus is calling, don't send Jesus to voicemail. Don't send
Pick it
Jesus
up.
to voicemail. Pick it up.
Hear what he has to say.
It may be scary, but you know what? You're going to be
Right.
blessed with that
Oh my
if you
gosh.
follow through on that. And so I guess that's one thing I'm really glad that I didn't send Jesus to voicemail, because it's kind of just become, I don't know, just kind of my ministry and the way I give back and help serve the world. And
Yeah, one of the things that was also compelling, not just your physical trials and then your total devotion to follow God after that, but also some of the emotional things that you went through. One of the things that God recently has taught me, and for anyone who's listening to this, if they hear me say this and say, "Well, I haven't seen that in you," fine. It's something that I'm learning presently. Like, I call it a dipstick moment. You know, like you can dipstick and you're low on oil, and if 5 minutes later, if someone fills the car up and you do another dipstick moment, it's full, right? Well, I'm being filled. Something is changing in me, and I'm not sure how far I really want to go back, but I will. I guess I'll put just a handful of things together. Um, I was always known as a hyperactive child. My last pastor teased and said that I'm like Tigger on amphetamines. And
okay.
and you know, I have been diagnosed by a psychiatrist as having ADHD. Um, they did not have medication when I was younger. When I got older, I took medication, really didn't like it. I've talked to a number of people who do not like the medications that are necessary to focus. And I've been an expressive person. I don't know if my ADHD and expressiveness are together, but well, if I'm well caffeinated, you just cannot shut me up. I mean, it's a real problem, diarrhea of the mouth. And so ever since I was a little child, I was always getting into trouble, and I was always being mocked because I said too much or I couldn't shut up or whatever. And so I was bullied a lot as a kid. And so I sort of had this experience that I just kind of felt systemically rejected by everyone. And I don't want to go into a number of the incredibly painful experiences I had, but I did have some that were, I mean, just downright scandalous. There was one where I was literally mocked in front of my entire high school at an auditorium event, and then had the administration of the school basically deny that it happened. It was so scandalous. Um, a lot of things like that, and I had a girlfriend that cheated on me, and it was sort of like I was the last person to find out. I had no idea. I was very naive about it. And when I got married, I used to include the story about her to everyone that would listen. And my wife finally said to me one day, she goes, I don't want to ever hear her name again. I don't ever want to hear that story again. And so in order to satisfy my wife, because she assured me that this was unhealthy, I stopped telling the story. I'm not going to tell you the story. Okay? I'm not going to tell anyone the story. But I guess that was probably my first step to healing of emotional pain. And then I've recently, in the last few years, had some experiences that, unfortunately, in order to protect the guilty, I won't share on air because they live in our town and they might listen to this, and I wish them well and I want them to thrive. But the facts are stubborn things that that I was viciously attacked emotionally and professionally, and I was 99% innocent, especially on the substantive issues. There were one or two things of where I got upset one time, and yes, I did, and I'm sorry I got upset, and that was not Christian or professional, and I corrected that immediately. But that's not normal behavior, and there was a circumstance and so forth. You know what I mean? And what ended up happening is my ministry and my life were utterly threatened, and I thought I was finished in ministry. And the church was severely hurt by this, and I lost a number of relationships that I don't know if I will ever get back. I don't expect to, actually. And there are a million things that remind me of that pain. And the irony was that one of the things that I was criticized for that they probably didn't know that they were criticizing me for and rejecting me over was that I hold my pain so publicly. Like, I wear everything on my shoulder. I will tell you about it if you ask, and maybe if you don't ask. And I went through a spiritual experience where I needed to nail that to the cross. And you know what I'm talking about, okay?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And God spoke to me very clearly recently, and he said to me, and it was just truly remarkable. We were singing this song, and I don't want to butcher it, but it's something like, I hear you calling in the night. If you lead me, I will follow. I will hold your people in my heart. Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord?
Yeah.
That one.
Yep.
I have heard you calling in the night.
Yep.
If you lead me, I will follow. I will hold your people in my heart.
Yep.
Right, old song.
Mm-hmm.
And I was devastated because God said to me, you cannot hold the pain of my people in your heart if you hold on to your own pain. You have to let it go.
Mm. It's one of those God moments they spoke to you, huh?
Yeah. And I can't say, excuse me, I can't say that I'm finished with that. But the pain of my surgery and the loss of my physical mobility and agility and strength, the pain of broken relationships in my life, the pain of rejection, the pain of false accusation and loss of reputation, being publicly shamed when I felt I did very little except do my best. And I mean that sincerely.
Saying it's hard to let that go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
God,
you're human,
God just,
right?
I am human. God brought this to me and he said, you must let that go. There are people out there that are hurting. You cannot hold their pain. You cannot care for them if you are too busy holding your own pain. And you have rejected my calling for you in part, which is that you have to hold their pain. You have to pay attention to them, not yourself. You have to let that go. And I really felt like God saying to me, you will never talk about this again.
Would you say like we're called to help bear each other's burdens, but you're too wrapped up just bearing your own burden?
Yeah,
Something along those
I
lines.
can't listen, brother. If you come in and you've had the worst day in the world, and all I do is just tell you all about myself, and all I do is focus on how you can help me when you're the one that I should be helping. It's reversed. It's backwards. It's broken. It doesn't work. Plus, everything in our life is going to remind us of some other thing that is painful. You can't walk down the street without having a memory jogged. I think the fancy word these days is triggered, right? I don't like that word because people abuse it, but there are legitimate psychological aspects that are called triggers. You know, with people with PTSD, if they hear a loud noise, they literally go into loss of their prefrontal cortex. They go into fight or flight amygdala mode. They cannot think or negotiate properly anymore. And I continually felt like I was slipping into that fight or flight, and I lost all ability to care for people. I lost the ability temporarily to be an effective leader. And God had to speak to me and said, you need to be okay with the pain that I put you through, and you need to give me that pain so that your heart can be a vessel that can carry other people's burdens, just the way I did on the cross. And I was like, and I nailed it to the cross, man. And every day, like today, I was having a conversation with KJ and Kelly Schneider, and we were just yakking away about like dreams of ministry that we want. We have a dream for this building, and we think that God has purposes in it, and we're starting to pray about it and brainstorm about it. So we spent a good deal of time today just sitting around, them talking to me about things that God was sharing with them and vision that they had, and seeing things that I'm skilled at. And they're like, we think you could do this. We'd like to see you try this. And I'm like, really? And then something happened in the middle of the conversation that I was totally not expecting. And I think they probably thought I lost my mind, because I literally did this. I just went like this. I looked up in the air and I just looked away, and they probably thought, has he lost his mind? And I said, I just coached my way through it. I said, I will not speak of things that God has told me to move beyond. I will focus on the future. I will get through my pain. I will give it to you, God, and I will listen to you. And brother, I'm telling you this, and anyone who's listening, I do not have this figured out.
If you're driving your car down the road, we should be looking towards the windshield, not the little rearview mirror.
That's right.
I always said that'd be dangerous.
That's
you're gonna
right.
Crash.
Yep.
Hard to move forward if you're focused on the back.
And you need to check that every once in a while. And you can't say that this forgive and forget belongs to God. I'll forgive, but I can't forget. That doesn't mean that I can't let it go, but what it means is that I don't proactively try to invert that and remember, rehearse. Like the more you pick at your scab, the longer it takes to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you don't have to share this, Justin, but you shared some things about the pain in your past. And I just kind of wonder what God has taught you about that. This is what he's taught me, that he wants me to let it go, to forgive people, to move on to the future. Because if I hold on to the physical and spiritual, emotional, whatever you want to call it, hurts, I cannot be an effective person to care for people. And that's what God has called me to do.
Mm-hmm.
What has happened in your life? What have you learned?
About forgiveness?
Or pain or anything. I mean, you were telling me stories just about what had happened to you in your life. I mean,
I went through probably in less than a 6-month period of losing just about every single thing that's important of value, to me, my life. It's hard to figure out exactly how much of that to share. I mean, some of it's obvious. I gotten divorced. I exercised my one biblical reason to be able to divorce, to file for divorce. So that's, maybe I can put it that way. And I would have never went from 0% chance whatsoever.
You did not want a divorce.
Oh, no way. If I divorce, then my kids are not growing up with their father in their home. And I wouldn't want to do that for my kids. It's not God's design. That's not how that's supposed to be, So, so I definitely had no desire of that, and did the best I could, with that. I went through a lot of betrayal. I never really experienced much betrayal in my life, but there was a season of massive, massive betrayal through, someone that was supposedly a friend of mine who was supposedly helping me with my marriage, and is 100% the cause of my divorce. So
wow.
That's I remember saying the words to the person, I don't care if she has lawyers and paperwork and whatever, I will not physically sign a paper. And then I was told, you can't hold her hostage, Justin. Those are the exact words. You can't hold her hostage, Justin. You don't own her. You don't control. And I saw this person flipping out. And then I later had figured out that, wow, because I'd be ruining other plans.
Oh, wow.
How could other plans move on if I had stopped those plans from
Wow.
having a hard time, how much of this I, could
Yeah,
kinda
you don't
share
you
or whatever,
don't, you don't,
but,
you experience
but
a,
it's
a
an
level
it's an
of
ugly truth.
brokenness in your
It's an ugly
relationship,
truth. Yeah. It's
and
an
you
ugly truth.
experience betrayal,
Yeah.
and you also experienced betrayal by spiritual leaders in your life
Mm-hmm.
who, rather than support you, actually did the opposite, and basically did not place your spiritual well-being or the well-being of your relationship with your former wife as first priority, rather their career and some things like that. And that is devastating. I mean, and then
Yeah.
you had family members betray you financially. You had a lot of things happen to you
Right.
that just blew me away. Like, I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this guy understands pain.
Yeah.
Like, you've been through it.
It was all right about the time that when my mom was dying. And in the last few weeks of my mom dying, losing my wife, my kids because they're with her, my home, right? Money, possessions, everything that goes in divorce and
Divorce
my
settlement type
mom
deal.
and yeah. I mean, and then obviously through challenges with how things went down with family and so forth that really kind of ended relationships with some in my own family.
Yep.
And my only other family was her family, and I don't really have that. So I went through a period of being very lonely, a very massive betrayal, lots of loneliness, starting over, and all that. And I think an interesting thing is I'm glad in a way that I went through that extremely tough time all at the same time with my losing my marriage and then losing my mom, at the same time, because looking back I learned something about acceptance. And, think of my mom had she was a beautiful, amazing woman, such a great relationship. Everybody knows I love my mom so much. We're so close and everything. And she just happened to be one of the 1 in a million people that get Creutzfeldt's Jacob's disease, CJD. It's like a very rare, aggressive form of dementia, kind of like what mad cow disease is to cows, like a human version of that. Like your proteins in your brain just start eating away, and it causes this very, this fast decline.
Is it a rapid onset?
Yeah, it's really weird. It's hard. Still learning a lot about it. Some get it and then they pass away within like 45 days or whatever. My mom got it, and then they said, hey, looks like she's got maybe 9 to 12 months from whenever we kind of got this diagnosis, and she lived a year longer than that. The last entire year of her life, she couldn't talk, and then she was on hospice, and then it was, wheelchair, and she couldn't really get around, and then she's bed bound, and so. Which is taking me to this acceptance thing, because I was thinking like, man, these stages that I saw of like my mom getting this diagnosis, and it's like, oh, I thought I had an extra 20 years. I thought you're supposed to live till you're 91, not 71, whatever, and so I was like, wow, I just got that. And then seeing this decline, and then seeing like, wow, now she's in hospice. And wow, now she's bedbound. And wow, now she's not even eating. Oh my goodness. Now she's not even drinking. Now she's whittling away down, down to nothing. I remember her whittling away. But by the way, here's the little visual. If I can give you like I was to squeeze my like middle finger and thumb together, not that far, but like a little tiny, about a half inch more. See that little gap there?
Yeah.
That's how big the biggest part of her middle inner thigh was. I could almost wrap her
way.
around. Yeah. She got down. She's like 80 pounds or whatever, just about a skeleton. just whittled away down to nothing. And then just seeing at that point that, and then like, well, she's going to die. And then like, what she did die. She just took her last breath. Oh my goodness! And carried her out to put her on the stretcher thing, and then had the people take her away.
You were there when your mother passed?
Yeah, I was singing "Jesus Loves Me" in her ear, and holding her hand, and
wow,
2:24 a.m. on June 3rd, 2019. And literally carried her out, to put her on the stretcher thing with those people and everything, and seeing her get taken away, and I was just like, there's nothing else that I could do except accept it. I remember a friend gave me a book about like grieving and all this stuff, and I know that there was like the stages of grief or whatever.
Yes.
I was like, oh my goodness, I really did
Oh,
experience
you
all
go
these
through
things.
all of them: the denial,
with
the
my-
bargaining,
Yeah,
the anger,
yes,
the all
yes.
the yes.
Every
And
single one of
every
those,
single one you
exactly
go through
in that
yes.
order, like with my marriage and like with the loss of my mom dying and all that.
Yes.
And but that acceptance is getting to that's how to encourage anybody that listens to this, and any struggles or pain or trials they're going through. If you get to the point of acceptance, then the peace comes. The peace comes at that after that point of acceptance. I mean, it's pretty miraculous. I think of how people think, oh my goodness, how did the world, how did you make it through all that? And it's like, there's two things. There's that, like getting that place of acceptance of like, this is what it is. I just, I don't want to keep focusing on the past. I'm just going to be thankful for the times of what I did have, which I encouraged anybody. Anytime I got that from the movie Courageous, the Christian movie, when like there's the guy and he loses his daughter, and then his coworker friend comes up to him and he's like, "Hey man, are you going to, whatever? I know this is tragic, and you lost your 8-year-old daughter or whatever it was, but he said, you're going to keep focusing on what you're missing out on in the future, or can you just be grateful for at least the time that you did have?"
Yeah.
And I try to use that all the time to help encourage other people, like especially if somebody's losing a loved one or whatever. It's like, because I know they're going to just be struggling in this pain ongoing of like, oh, I'm just robbed. I should have had this extra time. I can't believe what I lost. And you get what you focus on, right? So they're so focused on that when they could be having joy and great memories and gratitude and thankful for the time that they did have, So that was a big thing with that healing, going through that traumatic time of betrayal and pain and loss and, loss, so much loss, And here's another thing, how good God is. Like, I'll tell you right now, I'm very, very guilty of not like actually reading the Bible, like anywhere close to what I should be. I mean, I'm guilty as can be with that.
I can help you fix that.
I know. That's why I like hanging out with people like you.
By the way,
I want more
do
people than you.
Do you know how you help people get fit?
You help people get spiritually fit.
I can give you a plan,
feed
brother.
Feed them the
Yeah,
word
I'll
and
give
all
it
that.
to you,
I know.
man.
I love it.
We'll talk about it offline.
I love that. Yeah. So, but I do know that God is so good that the scripture Romans 8:28 stood out so much, and like that's what for God works for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose, right? So I just meditated, and
that was
I
like my
said
theme
that
verse for the last 2 years.
and over. That one verse, God is so good that even just one of His scriptures is all that I had focused on through that whole the most horrible time in my life to get me through that. Because I was thinking, God works for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. And I'm like, I love Him.
Right.
And I know for darn sure I'm called according to His purpose. And I know His word is true. Right. So I'm like, there's going to be something positive, come through on the
God
other
is
end of
working
this.
a good that we haven't fully seen yet.
Right. He takes bad stuff. I know, like, I'm always encouraging friends, like, God's not making bad stuff happen. There's bad stuff that happens in this world, and God is so good that He'll make good stuff come from that bad, And, and that's, what I've experienced with this. And so it's like I'm at a totally different place in my life now with just so random, like just earlier today, like taking a shower or whatever. I was just like, I love my life. Oh, I'm so grateful. I've just been living, and I just reconnected with this attitude of gratitude just all day.
That's fantastic.
I'm just constantly just feeling so amazing. Just like, oh, I'm so thankful. Just anything. I wash my hands, like probably too much. Like it's almost weird how much I wash my hands, whatever. And every time I wash my hands, I turn the water on, and I'm just like, gosh, this blows my mind. There's people in this world that don't have clean running water. I like this like unlimited supply.
And we have it in endless supply.
The exact temperature of exactly what I want,
Just tweak that, brother.
Get
it right. Just perfect.
Yeah. I literally thought about that, in today's shower. I'm like, I get to set the temperature exactly how I want it. This is amazing, but there's just so much to be grateful for. And so I don't know if anybody hears this, just have an attitude of gratitude, look around, live with gratitude. Life is so much more happy and joyous and fulfilling.
One of the things,
live with the fruit of the Spirit. That's my other big thing. Like life verse, whatever, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
Yep.
That's the stuff that's what I'm about. That's what I want more of. That's what I've tried to focus on, try to
Nice.
be the fruit of the Spirit, I know I won't be sinless like Jesus was, but boy, I'm going to live my life with as much of that fruit of the Spirit as possible.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things I'd like to say in closing is that I think there's a theme that's running through what we've talked about, and it really has to do with the mind and what we think about. The Apostle Paul said to the Philippians, he said, if there's anything excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And if you've seen anything good in me, put it into practice. And I think that we've had to deal with physical and emotional injury, and we have decided that rather than let that destroy us, or as I think you aptly were talking about, are you going to hold on to that?
No, that's something to nail to the cross.
Yeah, no, you got to get rid of that.
Get rid of that, yeah.
And you can't rehearse that. You got to replace that with the positive thoughts that God is giving you of thankfulness, of attitude of gratitude, of love and joy and peace and patience and kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And have those fruits come out of you. And so if there's anyone who's listening to this, what I would want, Justin, is for them to hear our stories and have some kind of Holy Spirit inspiration that God has good for them, and that the pain that they're experiencing right now is not the end of the matter, and that they can move in and through and past and release that pain and have gratitude and joy, and God can do something good in it. And I know
it's nothing compared to what Jesus,
and it's
the
you got
pain
it
that Jesus went through for us.
For the joy set before him, he scorned the pain of the cross, and he set his sights on sitting at the right hand of God the Father, where he will receive us. And our business now is to run that race and look ahead. It has been a true joy to have you on the Bridgepoint podcast.
It's an honor. I appreciate being here. It's
so
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
And maybe next time we'll talk about something else as God teaches us new things.
Hey, sounds good to me. I love it.
Fantastic. Well, look, everyone, thanks for tuning in. We're really grateful that you are listening, or you're watching this video, or on Spotify or whatever podcast platform you're hearing it. And if you would give us a good like and share it with people, that would be fantastic. And until the next time we get together, keep your eyes on Jesus. Let's follow him together.
Amen.